Alrighty, so obviously we know that a couple of days ago with Messi coming into MLS, he's the latest big name player to have come to MLS, and I thought this would be a perfect time for me to kind of do a video looking at all of these famous players that have played in MLS, going all the way back to the David Beckham era, because I think when David Beckham came into the league in 2007, that was definitely a huge moment in MLS. This was a moment where it really put MLS on the map on the world stage, and it was followed by a bunch of these well-known players that have come to MLS and have either uh get their last couple of paycheck or just for marketing reason, or they legitimately actually helped the team that they decided to play. And I also made a couple of exception with some of these American players too, because some of these American players have played in the league and then they made themselves a name with the national team and in Europe before coming back to MLS. But we start off with none other than the myth and the legend himself, David Beckham. Again, he kind of started this movement of all these well-known players that have either come to MLS to get their last paycheck. Although, again, that is kind of a notion that again is an easy notion for a lot of Euro snub that have said that MLS is just kind of a retirement league, which unfortunately kind of had that notion during the mid 2010s and even in the early 2010s. But that was kind of the MLS 2.0 era. But this, of course, kind of kicked off that MLS 2.0 era with David Beckham coming into the league between 2007 and 2012. 98 appearances, 18 goals, and 38 assists. Now, what's important about David Beckham is the fact that, yes, he did made his debut for the Galaxy back in 2007, and we'll never forget that memorable debut that he had against the New York Red Bulls at the Meadowlands. But he has spent a couple of years on loan to other club, and that's kind of what many people are thinking that could be the case for Messi. I mean, is this going to be a situation again, just like David Beckham, where yeah, he's committed to playing MLS, but in reality, he maybe just go on loan for a bit, and that kind of what got a lot of people, including Galaxy fans, upset about it because he was supposed to be the show piece. He was supposed to be the guy that is really fully committed to MLS, and then it kind of wasn't the case at times. So the next name that I'll mention, and by the way, this is not rankings in terms to talk about the most famous players that have ever played in MLS, but this is definitely right up there with Zlatan Ibrahimovic coming to the Galaxy, and it's worth mentioning Zlatan because he just retired a couple of days ago. He came into the league in 2018 and 2019, and if there's ever an argument the fact that MLS is not a retirement league, well, it's that time when he left the Galaxy returned to Europe and was still playing at a high level. So you can't call this a retirement league if a player just came to this league and still returned to Europe and play at a high level. But 56 appearance for Zlatan with 52 goals and 17 assists. Again, he was a guy that was scoring for fun in MLS, but unfortunately, he didn't really help this Galaxy team too much to a point where the first year that he came, they missed the playoffs. The second year that he came, they did make it to the conference semifinal, but then they lost to LAFC in that one. And there's just so many those kind of famous quote from Zlatan. I think the one that I always remember is him comparing LAFC and something with like Fiats and stuff like that. It was definitely one of the many memorable quotes that we always hear about Zlatan Ibrahimovic doing his incredible career in the sports. But then we go to the next name, and this name is that definitely a well-known name in the world soccer in David Villa coming to NYCFC, and he's also one of those players that he was part of during that time when NYCFC was simply signing a lot of these guys that are kind of a little bit past their prime, but were just coming into MLS for one last paycheck. But little do we know that NYCFC really needed David Villa because he was a prolific goal, scored 77 goals in 117 appearances. In fact, out of all the players on this list that I have that are not American, he of course has the most goal out of any of those players with 77 goals and 26 assists. And it's safe to say that NYCFC. I know they did eventually replace him with Tati Castellanos, which I think that was a perfect replacement for them. But yeah, the legacy that David Villa left to this NYCFC team was definitely strong, and he's definitely a guy that in the future I won't be surprised they might be even building a statue in front front of their new stadium because of what he mean to this club. Though again, it's also important to note, as much as he was a prolific goal scorer, he couldn't do it in the playoffs, and he was part of that NYCFC team that's kind of labeled as the chokers whenever they go to the playoffs, where they cannot get past the first or second round. Then we also have another legendary number nine, and with Villa being a legendary Spanish number nine, we go to a legendary number nine in the French side in Thierry Henry, coming into the New York Red Bulls, and I think this was also the next big name, because we heard about David Beckham coming into the league, but Thierry Henry was really that next player that came into the league that was a worldwide name, a household name that have come into MLS. He played for the Red Bulls between 2009 to 2014, though technically it should be 2010 because he didn't really play any game back in 2009. But 122 appearances, 51 goals, and 42 assists, part of the Red Bulls team. And again, just like David Villa when he retired, and that NYCFC did find a good replacement in Tati Castellanos. The same goes for Thierry Henry. They found a perfect replacement in Bradley Wright Phillips, and those two guys are still considered to be the most vital number nine for the Red Bulls, considering what's going the situation that they're going through for the past couple of years, where they have been having trouble in terms of finding the replacement of BWP. Then we also got Kaká, who went to Orlando City, and again, this was during the time when a lot of these expansion teams, usually these expansion teams, the number one thing that they really go for is basically signing these big name star in Europe to really attract the attention for the fans. And again, this also just shows you how the league kind of have moved away from that, and why the league is probably not considered a retirement league anymore, because when you look at the last couple of expansion teams, you don't see them doing that. I mean, I think besides maybe Inter Miami, did it a little bit in 2020 when they brought in Gonzalo Higuain to this team. They, you know it, um, there all these expansion team that has come into the league. You don't really see those kind of big name kind of players. And again, back then, the reason why that is the case is it generates the hype that fans want to support the team. Whereas now, you don't really need that anymore. Anytime when there is an expansion team coming into MLS, there's already that hype of the people in the city of that expansion team really want to watch this team, really want to root for them, because there's that support of coming into MLS, compared to what we were just a couple of years ago doing the MLS 2.0 era. But unfortunately for Kaká, he's one of those players that I'll mention a couple of times where he didn't really make too much impact for Orlando City. I mean, doing the 75 appearance, 24 goals and 22 assists, and you can clearly see that he was kind of starting to be very washed up by the time 2016 and 2017 rolled over. Then we also got Wayne Rooney, who of course is the current head coach of DC United. He of course played for DC in 2018 and 2019, and man, what a signing that was for DC. Not only to get butts in the seat, but really they helped this team. I mean, I still remember the Lucha Rue connection between him and Lucha Acosta back in 2018. That was something special that DC has not had for a very long time, but. Uh, During his time with DC, 48 appearances, 23 goals, and 15 assists. And then, of course, we also have one of the more recent big name player that is no longer playing in the league, in Gareth Bale with LAFC. Now, again, it's debatable if you're thinking whether or not if Gareth Bale did really make a big impact to LAFC. I mean, the people that said that yes is because of the goal that he scored against the Union, that equalizer goal, just shows you how much of a big game player Gareth Bale has been, and that kind of has been the case during his time with Real Madrid. But at the same time, there's also going to be people, and I'm kind of one of those that say I don't think Gareth Bale really made too much impact. I mean, this LAFC team was already good, and I could guarantee you that even if Gareth Bale didn't come to LAFC, I have a feeling they could have still be competitive, and still would have gone to MLS Cup. And keep in mind, he only made 12 appearances. Most of those are substitute appearances, and he only scored 2 goals. And one of those was the goals that basically got them to force a PK shootout in the MLS Cup against the Philadelphia Union, and eventually winning it all. So again, I just feel like it was just the LAFC trying to copy their intercity rival, a page out of their note of signing a big name player to come to the team, and just very well recognized, but in reality, he didn't really contribute that much, and he was just kind of there for one last paycheck. And then we also have Alessandro Nesta, who's I think this is a name that I think out of all these names I've mentioned, this one might be the one that people might think who exactly he is. He was definitely considered to be one of the best Italian defender during that time that went to Montreal between 2012 and 2013. Played 31 appearances, and so far, he of course haven't scored a single, during his time he didn't score a goal, but he did got one assist. But keep in mind, he's a defender. You're not going to see defender basically score the goals. He was definitely during the early days of Montreal, he was definitely a key piece in that defensive front, and especially again, this is also during the time when Montreal just came into the league, and this is also during the time when we see a lot of expansion team. This is the formula they follow. They want to not only get the fans hyped up that this is their first season in MLS, but they need a big name player in order to draw that attention, which is something we just don't see it anymore, because simply just going into MLS will draw the attention and draw the hypes in the fan base in the cities that gets that expansion team. Then speaking of Montreal, they also got Didier Drogba. I mean, I don't know if anyone forget that Didier Drogba actually played in MLS. But it happened between 2015 and 2016, and he was kind of informed for this Montreal team, because back in the mid 2010s, Montreal was definitely considered to be a very good team. In fact, Canadian teams were very good during the mid 2010s. I mean, Toronto. We talk about how they were a very good team, especially under Sebastian Javenko, and I'll never forget the Canadian Classic between both of these teams in the Eastern Conference Final back in 2016. But during Didier Drogba time, 33 appearances, 21 goals and 7 assists. So again, Didier Drogba was still scoring goals despite the fact that he was winding down his career. And then we also go back to one of the more recent one that came into MLS and have now recently retired, in Gonzalo Higuain, who came to Inter Miami in 2020 and was part of kind of the old ways of thinking of a lot of these expansion teams decided to sign big name players just to get that hype. I mean, I remember doing that season, they were basically linked with everybody coming in, because Miami wants to have that kind of brand of, yeah, they're a club that is going to bring these big names that will get butts in the seat. I mean, now they not only accomplish that, but they just poach probably the best player in the world to play at least for these next couple of years, and have single-handedly they not only put MLS back on the map, but really on the map for these next couple of years, because it's Lionel freaking Messi now playing for Inter Miami. But before that, they did get Gonzalo Higuain. And in the two seasons that, or actually in the three season he's playing, he had 67 appearances, 29 goals, and 14 appearances. And I've said before how some of these well-known player that comes to MLS and play, and some of them turns out to be a bit of a flop. This one looked like it was going to be the case until the very final season for Gonzalo Higuain, where he just single-handedly carried that team on his back to drag the team into the playoffs, which kind of makes me wonder, maybe he should have not think about retiring so soon, because I know he was getting to that point, especially during his first two seasons for Inter Miami, but what he did in his final season in his career, I mean, I thought he still at least had 1 or 2 years left in the tank. But nevertheless, I mean, again, it's going to be debatable whether you can consider Gonzalo Higuain made a huge impact, and whether if he's a bust or a considered to be a good signing. I mean, you could say it's a bust because of what happened in the first two seasons, but hey, he finished his career on a high note with having his best season with Inter Miami, and not to mention the fact that he's just single-handedly dragged that team to the playoffs. Then we of course get to some of the players that still currently plays in MLS that are kind of household names, and we start off with Lorenzo Insigne going to Toronto FC. Now I was thinking about including Federico Bernardeschi in this list too, but I decided to go with Lorenzo Insigne. I think Insigne are more of a household name, especially in Italian soccer, than a Federico Bernardeschi, and especially Insigne is still part of the Italian team, and Bernardeschi kind of hasn't been part of the Italian team, at least in the last couple of selection. But during the time when Insigne has come into the league, 21 appearance, 8 goals, and 4 assists. Now, obviously, I mean, Insigne coming to TFC, it is still to be determined whether or not if this was a good signing, because you can definitely see there was flashes of brilliance that Insigne has shown. That of course is that if he can stay healthy, but there's that flash of brilliance of why Insigne is considered one of the best winger in the world, and if he can stay healthy, if he can be like making that same impact like what Javenko did to this TFC team, maybe TFC not only made the right decision of bringing Insigne, not just for more what's in the seats at BMO Stadium, but actually a legitimate threat going for on the attack. And then we got Giorgio Chiellini, of course, still play with LAFC. Of course, he along with Gareth Bale were those two household names that have came to MLS and comes to LAFC. And while Bale has announced his retirement, Chiellini still march on, and I have a feeling he could march on for another year or two. I mean, I know he is getting up to that age, but he definitely bring that veteran presence that LAFC needed, and that yeah, I mean so far it's easy to say that he's definitely made some big impact, especially toward the back line, and also especially helping these young defender thrive in their role too. So yeah, 16 appearance, 1 goal and 1 assist. And then we move on the right side of the board, and we get Chicharito from the LA Galaxy. Again, this one was kind of a little bit debatable, but I put it on there because it's a very big household name in terms of Mexican soccer. I mean, Chicharito, the all-time goal scorer for El Tri. You got to include him there. 2020 to present right now, 74 appearances, 38 goals, and 6 assists. Though unfortunately, it's going to be a while for him to get past 75 appearances because unfortunately, it was announced just a couple of days ago he suffered a torn ACL and he's done for the season. And I don't know whether or not his contract is going to be end this season or next year, but yeah, it would really suck to see that. Chicharito, I will say that at least for the first couple of years, he definitely. Well, not the first year. The first year was an absolute nightmare year that but in 2021 and 2022, he definitely showcased what he has doing his prime of his career and really helped this Galaxy team going forward on the attacking end. And again, we don't say what happened in the first year because the first year was an absolute disaster, and that was a year where many people labeled that yeah, Chicharito going to the Galaxy was clearly just for marketing reason, and it turns out to be a huge flop. Then of course we go to Carlos Vela. I mean, I don't really need to mention too much about this name. This is definitely a household name in terms of just being a bona fide star in MLS. 131 appearance, 73 goals, and 51 assists. Now, obviously, I know Vela has started to show his age a little bit in the last couple of season, or really in the last 2 seasons. A lot of that has to do with injuries. I think injuries has kind of really root in the prime Carlos Vela that we saw. I mean, in 2019, that was probably the best we have ever seen Carlos Vela. It looked like he was playing similar to the level that we see maybe the likes of Messi or Ronaldo would be playing at. I mean, he was just absolutely dominating the league, making the all-time goal scorer or by a single season. And again, unfortunately, it hasn't been replicated because he's been suffering a lot of injuries and started to age a little bit. Then we get to the exception. So as I mentioned in the beginning of this video, I decided to pick names that is after when David Beckham comes into the league. So while there were still some well-known names before David Beckham, I mean guys like Marco Echeverri and even Carlos Valderrama play in this league, that is a good shout. But I do make some exception in terms of American players and certainly some well-known American players that's been part of the national team and made themselves a legendary status with the national team that play in MLS. And one of those is Clint Dempsey. Played for the Seattle Sounders and New England. He started his career with the Reds back in 2004 and 2006, and he finished his career with the Sounders 2013 and to 2018. I mean, his stint with the Sounders is probably the one that is going to be remembered the most. But during this time, 186 appearances, 72 goals, and 40 assists, and it's safe to say that Deuce definitely had a good career in MLS and made a huge impact to the Seattle team. I mean, between him and Oberfemi Martins back in the mid 2010s, those were very scary dynamic duo going for the Sounders during those times. Then of course we got Landon Donovan, the name that is have an MVP that is named after him. Again, I make this as an exception because he of course is a well-known name in U.S. soccer, and again, when you have an MVP award named after you, you know you're a big household name. He played for the Quakes and the Galaxy. He plays 2001 all the way to 2016. 340 appearances, 145 goals, and 136 assists. By far the most amount of out of anybody on this list. And then we get to go back to NYCFC, and again, remember NYCFC back in their expansion season, they really signed a lot of big name player that is kind of a little bit past their prime, but just kind of collect one last paycheck. And well, I mentioned David Villa as one of those players. They also brought in Frank Lampard and Andre Pirlo in this. Lampard only lasted two season, and let's say that yeah, it was pretty much a waste of time for him to be with this team. He really didn't do much for NYCFC. 29 games played, 15 assists and 15 goals and 4 assists, and was kind of underwhelming. Well, not as underwhelming as Andrea Pirlo. I mean, Andrea Pirlo, especially in that last season, you can clearly see he didn't really care at all anymore. He was just there for the fan fest. 60 appearances, 1 goals and 18 assists. And then you also have Steven Gerrard coming into the league with the Galaxy again. 2015 was really a big year in terms of all these well-known players that have come into the league. I mean, you got the likes of Kaká, Didier Drogba, David Villa, Frank Lampard, Andre Pirlo, and even Steven Gerrard. All these players came around that same year. That was a big year in terms of all of these well known players coming into MLS. And this is also where the year where Eurosnub will say, "Yep, MLS is definitely a retirement league. Look at all these well-known players coming into MLS just to grab one last paycheck." And while some of them succeed, others didn't. And unfortunately, I have to say the same with Steven Gerrard because he didn't really do much in his time with the Galaxy. 34 appearances, 5 goals, and 14 assists. And then you have Bastian Schweinsteiger. Now, I didn't actually write the year, but I believe it was 2017 all the way up to 2019 that he's played for the Chicago Fire. Now, I will say this about Bastian Schweinsteiger. He definitely made a huge impact to the Chicago Fire in his first season. Like, the Chicago Fire, we know that they're basically a dumpster fire, and I know, sorry, Fire fan, but you knew that was coming with the way that thing have just not been good for this team for the past decade or so. But he single-handedly get was able to help that team to make it to the playoffs and had probably the best season that the Fire has had in a very long time. But unfortunately, like what we've seen with all these players that kind of pass their prime, once they have one good year, it's gonna be hard to follow that for a second or third year, and the fall off would be quick to see, and that was kind of the case. I mean, the fall off was there from Bastian Schweinsteiger to a point where the Fire had no choice but let him go, and then he eventually announced his retirement. 85 appearance, 8 goals, and 15 assists. And then finally, the last name I want to throw in there, again, this is another one I want to make as an exception, but I cannot not forget about Tim Howard. I actually originally wasn't going to put him on the list, but I basically put him on the list, which is why there's a different marker of hands. And also, unlike all these players I've mentioned, I have to mention a goalkeeper too, because I mentioned all kind of different position for all these well-notable names that play in MLS, and taking a look at it since David Beckham coming into the league, and you got to add Tim Howard as the goalkeeper. Plays for the Red Bulls and the Colorado Rapids. Well, actually, not the. It wasn't called the Red Bulls. It was called the Metro Star back then in 1998 and 2003, and then doing his latter years in 2016 and 2019. And I will say this, doing his time with the Metro Star, he definitely made himself a name to a point where he was the regular starter for the U.S. men's national team for a very long time, and will definitely go down as the best goalkeeper of all time that the U.S. has ever had. And then doing his latter years, it was kind of sad doing the latter years because you can clearly see he was washed up. No, in 2016 when he did came into the league, he definitely dragged that Rapids team to a second place finish and got them all the way to the Western Conference Final. And to this day, that is as far as the Rapids has gone ever since they won that MLS Cup back in 2010. And of course, doing his career, 773 saves and 38 clean sheet that Tim Howard, of course, has had. And yeah, overall, that is pretty much me going over all the well-known player and the household names that play in MLS. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of this list? And again, I think it's only fitting for me to mention it because of Lionel Messi come into the league. And again, this wouldn't have happened if David Beckham didn't came into the league. Like that moment of David Beckham coming into MLS in 2007 completely changed the landscape and how we look at this league in a whole. And I could say this, that I probably wouldn't be doing this and talking about the league and being very passionate if David Beckham didn't get to this league in 2007. That's how much of a landmark moment it is to this league. But there you have it. That is pretty much it for this video. Let me know in the comments below what do you think of this video. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.